Put your hands up. Yeah. Okay. How many people reckon they're not in debt? Wow. Phenomenal. That's actually quite a lot. I'm quite surprised. I'm amazed. We're not even in Yorkshire. Or another tight. Quite remarkable. But you see, more than half of the people here are in debt. And the people in this audience are actually really something quite special. That we're self-selected for people who want to be self-reliant, to look after themselves, who think for the long term. That's the most important thing. This party is about thinking for the long term. We're a long-term party. We worry about the future that our children and grandchildren face in our country, in their country, unless something's done to turn all sorts of things around. So we're the forward thinkers in this society, and even here, fully 2/3 are in debt. There's £1 trillion worth of debt pressing down on the British people like a giant weight. You can't begin to imagine £1 trillion. You know, how many times would it fill this room over? Even in £50 notes. I've not the faintest idea. That's how much debt we're facing. What's keeping that debt up? Why didn't it crush us completely? Because there's been a consumer boom. So people, because the house prices have been going up, and let's face it, even in places like Burnley, house prices have gone up. In fact, particularly in the BNP wards, house prices have gone up. So house prices everywhere have gone up, partly because our inner cities are increasingly unlivable, and because this country's population is growing at a huge rate, almost solely because of immigrants coming in, or the descendants of ones who have much larger families than we do on average. So because of that, house prices are going up. Because house prices are going up, when the credit card load becomes too crushing, what do people do? Well, you remortgage the house because it's increased in value by 30% only over the last couple of years. So you've got more equity, and let's face it, paying it up over 25 years instead of at the exorbitant interest rate of credit cards, well, it's a good deal, isn't it? So you mortgage the house a bit more, and you think you're going to cut the credit cards up, but of course you can't, because there's not quite enough money coming in to make ends meet. So you have to put the food for the kids or the shoes for the kids on the credit card, so the debt builds up again. Doesn't matter, 2 or 3 years later, your house prices have gone up again, so you've got more equity, so you can remortgage the house, and that carries on. That's why we've got £1 trillion worth of debt pressing down on us, but it's also why it hasn't ground to a halt yet, because as house prices have gone up, people have felt rich, they've had money to go and spend in the high streets or the out-of-town shopping centres, and so everything's carried on. Till a few months ago, the Labour government had their election just in time. I was reading in the paper this morning, in the Mail, a piece there in the financial pages, talking about the slump in the high street, in high street sales. And they're saying, they're admitting now, all the retailers, there's loads of them gone to the wall already, others clinging on by the fingertips. If you want to buy anything expensive, just take it from me. Don't buy it yet, wait a few months more, because you'll get it in a fire auction bargain sale in a few months' time for a fraction of what you pay now if you can't wait for a little bit longer. Because what they're saying now is that the retail people, all the big shops, they're having it harder now than any time since the 1960s. Now, I was around then, but I don't remember what the particular problem was, other than the fact you had a Labour government, so it gives you an idea. In the 1960s, things were as bad as they are now in the retail world. I don't know what that was. Well, I can remember 2 specific times when the retail world had it really rough. The ones of my age and above, you'll remember, my kids at present, a couple of them are doing exams. I was thinking the other day, looking at doing their revision, which they do, which is remarkable, that when I was their age, I can remember doing my revision by candlelight. Because you had the 3-day week, when there was all sorts of problems under a Tory government, because they're absolutely useless as well, all sorts of problems under the Heath government, and there wasn't even enough electricity to go round. So I was doing my revision by candlelight. Now, the mayhem that caused to the economy was such that there was a really serious slump in spending in the high street, but not as serious as there is now. Or come back a bit further forward to the very early 1980s, when Maggie Thatcher had set about absolutely abolishing huge sections of real serious British industry because she wanted to crush the unions. And she took the coal mining industry to the cleaners and decimated it. And she wiped out most of the steel industry. And she wiped out the shipbuilding industry. She created social and economic catastrophe for ordinary, decent, hard-working, working-class communities all over this country. Partly for justification because the Marxist-dominated trade unions did need taming, but also because she wasn't a decent conservative. She was a crazed 19th century liberal up here, and she believed that everything should be sacrificed to economics, and very short-sighted in economics at that. And she declared war on the working class people of this country, and she made one a hell of a mess of the old industrial areas. Even when she was doing that, even when unemployment crept up to 10% and above, even then, 4 million unemployed, even then the retailers weren't having it as bad as they're having it now, which tells you just how much this country's economy has just fallen off a cliff. You can add one more thing onto that, and again in the papers the last couple of days, if you look in the heavies, in the heavyweight journals, in the financial pages, and you look about what they're saying about energy, and how all over the world people want more energy, particularly more oil, but the companies can't find it anymore. It's not there. And in country after country, this country of ours 2 years ago was a net oil exporter. We exported more than we imported. We have done for years. It was a huge income bonanza for the Tory government and the Labour government. They got money coming in by the bucket load, courtesy of oil. Not anymore. 2 years ago we ceased exporting it, we started importing it. Last year the same with natural gas. We used to export it all over Europe. Last year we started importing it. It's catastrophic for Britain, but it's only a symptom of what's happening all over the world. There's loads of oil left, loads of gas left, but roughly speaking, the easy half to find is all gone. The easy half to exploit is all gone. The profitable half to exploit is all gone. The good stuff that's easily refined is all gone. So half of it's still left, vast amounts of it. But the profitable, decent stuff that really motors an economy, it's gone. And the world economy is about to fall off a cliff on account of this. And it's going to get really, really hard. And that's really where we come in politically. Because there were huge numbers of people at the last election who perhaps might have thought of voting for us, but wouldn't, because let's face it, for a lot of people in the last few years, if you discount the fact that you owe huge amounts of money on a mortgage or a credit card, actually you don't feel too badly off. If you've gone, even in quite poor places, like Burnley and Cole and so on, if you've gone any Thursday or Friday or Saturday night to, the Burnley Steakhouse or something like that, are there any spaces in the car park the last few years? I don't know now, but if you think about 18 months, were there any spaces there? Everyone was there. Everyone was basically doing all right. Apart from, there's a submerged section of the population, like in some of the little streets around here, but it has been left to rot. So there's a submerged section of the population, but the section of the population which actually thinks and talks and votes and influences their neighbours as to how they think and vote, they were doing quite all right, thank you, Jack, in most areas. And that is just grinding to a halt. And this country is going to tip over into a mega recession. Actually, it's not even all the Labour Party's fault. But the government, people are going to blame them. They're going to blame them something wrong. And when you look in places like this, repeatedly, we come second. Not to the Conservative Party, they're nowhere in sight, are they? Sometimes to the Lib Dems, but most of all, we come second, time and time again, to the Labour Party. Because people think, whatever's wrong with Tony Blair, at least Gordon Brown has run the economy all right, and I'm okay. And that's about to end over the next few months. It's quite likely, by the time next May comes around, when those elections you were talking about are here, that people are going to be really hurting economically. And at that stage, we can make some really big breakthroughs. We need to, because actually we've got a lot of the answers to the problems. Because the reason the British people are hurting, like the people of so many other countries, is that we've had for 50, 60 years internationalist governments which think that it's not their job to look after their own people. It's their job to look after the super rich shareholders of a few multinational companies. Well, we don't think that is the case. We think it's the job of the democratically elected British people's government to look after fundamentally the British people. If there's a little bit left over after that, then fair enough, because we're decent, kind-hearted people. We may well look around the rest of the world